I now give the floor to Her Excellency Celinda Sosa Lunda, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Plurinational State of Bolivia.
Muchísimas.
Thank you very much indeed. I am delighted to participate at the 29th session of the General Assembly. I'd like to greet the Vice President, and at the start of my statement I would also like to greet the President of the General Assembly, Mr. Philemon Young, as well as my brother, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and all delegations here present. President, distinguished colleagues, today we are meeting at a challenging moment for humankind. We are facing not one but many challenges which threaten our present and the future of generations yet to come. Climate change, inequalities, pandemics, geopolitical crises, and the democracy crisis, all of these are mutually self-reinforcing, worsening vulnerabilities and posing challenges which require urgent and coordinated solutions. We must do so collectively. The global economy today is becoming fragmented. The model of accumulating capital based on the hoarding of wealth in the hands of but a few. We have seen a rise in poverty, marginalization, and social instability in many places the world over. Meanwhile, financial markets continue to generate huge profits for the 1% of the global elite. Millions of people struggle to access the most basic resources. This crisis isn't only economic, it is also an ethical and social one. It highlights the deep structural rifts in the capitalist system and prioritizes profit over life and welfare and Mother Earth. Wars, the production of weapons, enormous military expenditure, and the dissemination of weapons doesn't only take massive resources away from sustainable development, it also fuels conflicts, exacerbating the suffering of human beings. Billions of dollars are destined to the production of weapons, while millions of people go without access to basic services such as education, health, food, and water. Instead of finding solutions to common problems, it increases global instability and hinders the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. The environmental crisis is one of the greatest threats, and still our actions are falling short. Global warming, deforestation, pollution, and biodiversity loss are wreaking havoc on our ecosystems, but they also have a direct impact on the lives of millions of people via extreme phenomena such as droughts, floods, hurricanes, all of which are ever more intense and which affect local communities and indigenous peoples. President, the transformation of technologies, which is unprecedented with the development of new technologies and artificial intelligence, are forms of progress which are changing how we interact. Let us work to ensure that this is a good change. But this technological revolution also forces us to ask major questions about global governance. in a world where technological power is concentrated in the hands of a mere few corporations and countries. Global governance needs to adapt to make sure that these technologies are deployed in an equitable, ethical way which serves the well-being of humankind, rather than entrenching inequalities or creating new forms of exclusion and control. Brothers and sisters of the world, given this crisis, we must act decisively to collectively tackle the global challenges that we face. It is high time that we change our models of development and bolster multilateral institutions to ensure that the planet is safe for future generations and to make sure that justice, equity and solidarity are the principles guiding our actions vis-à-vis international law and the Charter of the United Nations. The system which has governed the world order since the final days of the Second World War has shown itself insufficient in addressing today's crises, such as climate change, inequalities, regional conflicts, the pandemic, and new forms of economic interdependence. Because of this, a new world order based on multilateral cooperation, which is effective, respect for sovereignty of all countries, and equity in decision-making in the world is an imperative. To do so, we need to have a root and branch reform of international institutions such as the Security Council of the United Nations, so that they are more democratic and representative. We must move towards a system where global decisions are taken in an inclusive fashion, reflecting diversity and the various needs and visions of developing countries. With that in mind, we also will need to deeply and significantly restructure the international financial architecture, which is it should be based on economic justice, sustainability and inclusion, creating fairer mechanisms for redistributing sovereign debt, increasing the participation of developing countries within financial institutions, and promoting financing flows which can support sustainable development and action for the climate. It is also vital to redesign mechanisms for international cooperation in tax affairs, so that the most vulnerable economies have access to resources which allow them to address these many crises. Restructuring the international financial system is not only a technical matter. It is also a technical and political sine qua non if we are to build a more equitable, resilient and solidarity-rooted global economy. The 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals continue to be in force. They represent our critical roadmap to addressing global challenges, including those which are most urgent. They provide us with a key framework for actions in international cooperation, despite the fact that they are not on track for implementation. We must redouble our efforts and redouble our collective endeavour to ensure that this ambitious plan becomes a tangible reality and that it changes the lives of our peoples. The Pact for the Future must be seized as a historic opportunity so that our destiny as humankind can be safeguarded. We need to commit ourselves to an agenda which addresses not only immediate problems, but which also fosters sustainable, inclusive and equitable solutions for future generations. The Pact of the Future can't be boiled down to a diplomatic meeting. Now it's up to us to push ahead with these decisions so that we give impetus to the Sustainable Development Goals and change the lives of all communities and cities in our nations. Sustainable development and climate change are two sides of the same coin, the same challenge, which will guide the future of our planet and generations yet to be born. Taking action doesn't just mean reducing emissions, it also means transforming our model of production and consumption, protecting biodiversity, and guaranteeing economic progress, leaving no one behind. Distinguished colleagues, Bolivia recognizes the international community as a space of solidarity and cooperation under the principles of international law and the Charter of the United Nations. With that in mind, we reject unilateral coercive measures which violate the most fundamental human rights and which hold back the development of many peoples. We stand in solidarity with Cuba, with Venezuela, with Nicaragua, and with all countries the world over which suffer unfairly from these unilateral sanctions. Similarly, we express in the strongest possible words our rejection of the illegal economic and commercial embargo by the United States against our kindred nation of Cuba. 60 years of justice have not been enough to punish those people who have valiantly seen down attempts to subject them to imperial domination. We are sure that sooner rather than later, justice and truth will prevail. This injustice is worse still when we consider that unilaterally the United States has included Cuba on the states which are deemed to be sponsors of terrorism. Cuba must be at the head of the list of countries which express the most solidarity in the world, and their people, showing solidarity, have reached all corners of the world, showing the best of their skills and showing them with humanity. For decades, Palestine has suffered from a protracted conflict which has shaken regional stability, and they have asked for their dream of lasting peace. The occupation, forced expulsions and genocide have led the people of Palestine to face devastation and destruction, creating an open prison where thousands of people live, including mostly women and children. Peace and security in Palestine will not be achieved without a genuine commitment to human rights and an end to the genocide. Bolivia reiterates its full support to the exercise of self-determination and independence in Palestine within the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. We hope that soon they will be a fully fledged member country of the Assembly of the United Nations. Brothers and sisters of the world, before this assembly, I would like to reiterate Bolivia's commitment to the founding principles of the Charter of the United Nations and of international law. We see the UN as the highest multilateral organization created for humanity, development, peace, and security, not just within our borders, but also internationally. Within that context, Bolivia once again reiterates our strong desire to abide by all decisions and resolutions of the judicial organs of the international system. Along those lines, Bolivia attended the International Court of Justice in The Hague in a trial linked to sovereign access to the Pacific Ocean. In that connection, the Court urges Bolivia and Chile to continue with dialogue and exchange in a spirit of good neighbourliness to address matters linked to a sovereign form of access to the Pacific Ocean. The solution to this has been recognised by both parties as a matter of mutual interest. The court issued an appeal to both countries, asking them to resolve their issues on the basis of discussions so that Bolivia can have sovereign access to the Pacific Ocean, which we had during our Declaration of Independence, as recognised by that very court in its relevant ruling. My country stands ready to engage in dialogue when our counterparts decide to follow suit. We believe that this is a right of the Bolivian people. Bolivia calls upon the international community to protect and support indigenous peoples who have been the guardians of biodiversity and ancestral knowledge. At present, we face challenges which have been exacerbated by various crises. It's important to recognise the contribution they have made to climate action, as well as their knowledge, which is fundamental, proposing to us a new model of development so that we can live well in harmony with Mother Earth. Similarly, within this chamber, allow me to share with you our concerns about the negative reputation enjoyed by the coca leaf, which to indigenous peoples represents part of our community and culture. Furthermore, we propose that we continue to make headway towards the promotion of gender equality policies and social policies with a focus on decolonization and ridding ourselves of the patriarchy. This will allow us to revolutionize social relations which have been perpetuated under the hallmark of gender inequality and oppression of our sisters. Today, on behalf of the people of Bolivia and its constitutional president, Luis Arce Catacora, we reiterate our democratic conviction, which is rooted in the well-being of the Bolivian people, to soon achieve the 2030 agenda and a form of living well in harmony with Mother Earth. We regret that domestic and external interests are now plunging the country into turmoil as they seek to destabilize a democratically elected government. But we are sure that with the support of all of you, we will stand firm and strengthen our democracy and institutions in our country. Bolivia is a country which has demonstrated throughout its history that its democratic vocation is unwavering as we strengthen our institutions and seek to guarantee a future which is peaceful, prosperous, and progressive for all. This is the only goal we pursue as a government. I would like to say, allá los pueblos del mundo. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias.
I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Plurinational State of Bolivia.
Hemos escuchado
We have now heard the last speaker in the general debate for this meeting.